Hi guys. So I don't have what I have is basically a short story about one small team working on one problem on one product, which is why I'm talking about non-designers, because I come from a background where I like getting everybody involved. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a designer, a 3D designer, motion graphics designer who got into VR a couple years ago. Basically, I was burnt out and I wanted to restore the right side of my brain. And VR really did it for me. And I'm also a teacher. I've taught design software. What's going on? Louder? Is this better? Wow, okay, cool. I really loved Christine's talk because instructional design is pretty important to me as well as an educator. So what I did this summer, VR's been, I don't have a full-time job in VR. It's my side thing. It's the thing I do for fun, right after the day job's over. So I joined a team that was a very small little startup called Drop. It's a Vive app that they're putting together. They were part of an accelerator program for HTC Vive. And they're working on basically a productivity tool, right? I'm not really much of a gamer. I'm more of an artist type. I'm not sure why, but my two interests in virtual reality are making art and getting work done. All this other like shooting stuff and jumping around and saving princesses, I can't do that at all. I still have not saved the princess in Super Mario Brothers. If anyone can help me out with that later, I'd really appreciate that. But I think I think what we're going to discover is why those two things make sense to me is because VR is a great place to get work done if you're an artist. But what Drop wanted to do was something a little bit different. They wanted to put whatever you were looking for on the web, let's say in a discovery or a search environment, and bring it to you in an immersive space. So we needed to figure out, how do we do that? Okay, fine. Technically, the engineers have figured that out. But now, once we do it, what do we do with the stuff that you found, right? So I've searched the web. I'm in VR. Now I have pictures and links and videos, et cetera. But what am I going to do with it? How do I work with it? So that gets to the question, what does a workspace in VR look like, right? A place to get something done, not just to play games or to make sculptures or art, or et cetera. What does a workspace look like in VR? This is in springtime this year. And so in fact, as we as a team were discussing this, Facebook Spaces actually came out. And so I was going home and trying it out on my Oculus and coming back and saying, oh, you guys should try this. This is really cool. But we're a Vive team. We're not using the Oculus Rift. So fine, we're not necessarily competing with Facebook Spaces because that's more of a social thing. But what we do need to do is figure out a way to work together and iterate to come up with our solution. Thing is, this was a remote team. We didn't have an office space. We got together in a WeWork space every once in a while. We all had headsets in our own tiny Bay Area apartments. But we didn't have a central location where we would meet and work, and so we couldn't do a design sprint. We couldn't put a ton of Post-it notes on a wall. And in fact, the places where we did get together and meet, those tended to be meetings for the CEO to outline and clarify his vision, for us to talk a strategy in terms of a business point of view. So we couldn't really get into what I wanted to get into, which was how are we going to solve this interaction problem, right? But at least I knew what we needed to do. We needed to put together a prototype. And I needed the entire team involved because there's only 7 people on the team, right, including me. And because I'm a teacher, because I have an education background, part of what I do all day to my friends who are not designers, who are not artists, and say, you can do it too. Right? My friends come up and they say, oh, I can't even draw a straight line. And I say, go get a ruler and a pencil, and look, you drew a straight line, it's that easy, right? I don't think you're born with it. I think design and art are skills that can be learned and they can be taught, and because I have experience teaching them, I get pretty excited about that. And in this case, I wanted everybody to have a stake in what we were building, which means I needed everybody's input, right? Whether it was the CEO, who was constantly talking vision but was very busy raising money, the product guys at the top there, who were supposedly left-brain strategy people who were not going to go anywhere near a Sharpie, the engineers, or my sole other designer, Ruka, who also ended up being an engineer, come to think of it. I have the least amount of coding skill of anybody on this slide. Wow. So, but I had a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and I wanted to get everybody involved, and I've lost my clicker. Here it is. So this was the challenge, right? In the middle of a little WeWork meeting in a space that we had borrowed for half an hour, I said, okay, I want everybody to give me their input. Napkin drawings, something you doodle on a piece of paper, anything you got, just send it to me. I want an idea of what the space is going to look like. And I want to, so that didn't go anywhere because they don't want to draw. But we all have Vive headsets, right? We all have VR headsets, which means we all have Tilt Brush because at the time we bought it, you got Tilt Brush for free. So I knew they had a way to sketch right there in their place. So I said, okay, I'll give you an excuse, right? I'm not going to give you an open-ended, I want you to express yourself, but I said, you know, what I need is a scale reference, right? Because we're all different heights. So I really need everybody to like stand in the space and just naturally draw where you think this control panel should sit so that I can then have it as a measurement of how high it should be, right? I'm tricking them a little bit, right? It's maybe not the best pedagogy, but it works on my kids, so I'm going to try it with adults. And so who's going to answer that challenge, right? That was my next question. Is like, who's going to come in with this? Is it going to be the other designer on the team? Is it going to be the CEO? Is it going to be my engineers? And surprise, it was Jeff, the money guy. Jeff, who worked in finance back on the East Coast before he got hit by the VR bug and comes out to California to do something crazy, right? He's the one who puts on the headset and doodles something really awkward and strange, et cetera. And I was so proud of him and so happy for him. Because, you know, I've talked to folks who are doing user research for medical applications, for social applications. If you're a scrappy little 6-person team, user research is hard because everybody you know that has a VR headset, they're also working on a VR project, right? So Jeff got into Tilt Brush, which usually looks like this, right? When we see advertisements and videos for it, you have artists like Liz Edwards or Estelle Atse or Steve Teeple or I'm blanking on the other people that I know, but they make beautiful, gorgeous stuff, right? That's art. That's what I do at home. But I don't need that. What I need is a sketch on a napkin that says this button goes here, that one goes there, this one goes there. And it is, I'm going to say this again, it's really hard to get people to doodle that stuff on paper. But the physicality of VR, the immersion of it, and the sheer delight of these tools, and I count Facebook Spaces as one of those kinds of tools that is just a ton of fun, means anybody can jump in. Even a finance guy from the East Coast can jump in and give you his idea of what the internet should look like when you go searching on it in VR. So Jeff gave me my height reference, right? But he also gave me a start. And it also meant that we had investment from somebody on the team who wasn't just a coder and wasn't just a designer. There's a team aspect to that as well, right? I want everybody to feel like they did some part of this. That's a big part of it for me anyway. And I get this file from Jeff, and it's a little Tilt Brush drawing, which means I can open it in Tilt Brush. I think this thing plays, right? Hold on. Oh. Yay! All right, awesome. And this is just to make clear, this is an immersive space, this is in 360 space. When I first saw it, it wasn't a picture, it was all around me in space, which meant I knew, yeah, he's actually drawn the control panel about yay high, which is about a foot lower than we had in the early prototype. So that's important to know. It's at a different angle. He wants buttons on the right side, not on the left side, which is where I had them originally. Little things like that. The great thing about Tilt Brush is that once I have the sketch, I can actually use it in Unity to develop with. We had a Unity engineer yesterday in here. So the Tilt Brush team iterates like crazy. And one of the things they did was make a toolkit for Unity so that you can import Tilt Brush drawings into it. So, you know, from from a sketch on a napkin to a Photoshop file or a sketch file to a UI, we have a similar flow here where you can go from this virtual sketch of what the UI should look like straight into the development environment where you're going to make the app. So I thought, great, this is good. I got input from the team. I have my example here. I have my height ratio, et cetera, where I'm ready to start building something, or at least ready to start designing panels and UI for it. And you can see the purple area is what I'm mostly concerned with here, right? We needed a workspace for you to select items that you'd found on the web. You were searching the web in VR, and then now you were going to pick which links, which photos, which videos you wanted to do whatever you're going to do with them. So great, I'm set. But I get even better news. Bo has an idea. The other PM, the other guy who's not artistic, has decided he too wants to share something, which is awesome. But Bo has kids. I have kids. Bo has a day job. I have a day job. We don't have an office. Getting together is insanely difficult. So what we need is to get a room, which is where Big Screen comes in, which is the other tool that I fell in love with this spring. Big Screen's CEO comes from a peer-to-peer networking background. So at the very least, Big Screen's network connections are solid when you're working there, which is really cool. It is a social VR space. Perfect. It is private, which is a different thing. I couldn't figure out how to get a private room in AltSpace VR. Otherwise, it would have been fine, and we would have been just using little heart emojis and smileys and meeting and talking about things like that. So I needed a private space where we could go over ideas and talk about what he thought the control panel should look like. And then we also heard a little rumor from the CEO of Big Screen saying, hey, we've got a beta thing coming up. If you're interested, hit me up on, I think it was on Discord or something like that. So I said, hey, we're actually thinking of using Big Screen VR to get some work done. What's going on? And he was adding markers, Sharpies in VR. That's all I need. So that meant that I was going to be able to get together with Bo, who was going to show me what the panel looked like, and we were actually going to meet. Screenshot of Big Screen so you get an idea of what it looks like. Here's two people getting work done, drawing sketches, sharing screens together, et cetera, et cetera. A productive environment in virtual reality for my left side of the brain, and Tilt Brush for my right side of the brain, right? It turns out the hard part of getting a meeting to happen in VR is the same thing as the hard part anywhere else. It's scheduling. It's just, what time? 8 o'clock? 8:30. No, I've got to put the kids to bed. All right, 9 o'clock. Are we doing 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock. Great. So we finally figured out a time. And then we get in, and by golly, then it's the connection's solid. We're in the same space. And we spent 10 minutes going, oh, this is cool. What color hair do you have? Hold on. I'm blue. Ah, nice. Okay, great. Yeah. So after we finished geeking out and being ridiculous dads in VR, we finally settled down to getting some work done. So the workspace, what do you think it should look like? Okay, so that is Bo on the left. That's me on the right looking at what he's come up with. And he wanted a kind of a circular master panel happening. And the lines you're seeing are from the little marker tools that Big Screen uses. But the other thing that Big Screen has is a camera, which meant I could get around to, after he'd finished drawing, which he did standing on top of a couch right on the edge of a window outside above LA. It was terrific, though. He could tell me it's going to be like this, and then you do this, and this happens, and this floats up above it. Really nice experience. But after he was done, I could go back with the camera and take reference photographs from it. Anybody here do 3D art? Right? 3D graphics? You're like going to model something, you're like, I need a top view, I need a side view, I need a front view. Half the work is resolving the difference between those views, right? Okay, so that meant I could do that with his little, very, very simplistic graphic, which was great because the green rectangle I think is supposed to be where the object you selected floats above the UI, et cetera. So I had 2 or 3 different images from the other PM, all the left brain people giving me input. It's so freaking great. So I've got a nice reference image that I can then take and build this in Cinema. I've used like half a dozen different 3D programs. Cinema 4D is my favorite. I don't know why. Maybe because it comes with a little mannequin guy, and so he's really handy. So this is what we generally had agreed upon was, all right, once you find things on the internet in VR, you're going to drop them into a selection box here, hit a button to delete or maybe highlight them or something, and then on the left and right-hand side, we've got these little paddles for, I don't even remember what the buttons were that Jeff wanted to include, but there they were. And then, so I've got a 3D asset that I've built in the space, all based on input that everybody gave me. In fact, not only could I use the image references from Big Screen VR, I could also import the tilt brush model straight into it because tilt brush exports FBX models, right? So if you're a 3D artist in Maya or Cinema or whatever, you can just bring in whatever somebody drew in tilt brush and use it as a reference guide. I mean, that has insane implications. Even if you're not making VR, if you're going to 3D print a mask and somebody tells you, I want the monster eyes here, 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 and here, you can bring it in, model it in 3D, and then you send it to your MakerBot or something. Or a printer that's better than a MakerBot. Oh, that's a whole other talk. So we've got input from non-designer people making this iteration of an interface model for our VR app for using the web. And that gets us to the happy ending of product design. Yeah, this doesn't work. It's part of how you get the work done, is you try things and you build it very quickly, and then you find out why it doesn't work and what you need to do next. So I'm going to try and show you why it doesn't work, or maybe why I don't think it works. Okay, so you start in drop, and you've got your environment in front of you, your selection tool here. It actually wouldn't appear until after you entered your VR search, but what happened is the keyboard and the panel are competing with each other. And so I've got like 2 layers of interface here, and it's like, I don't know if this is really working, et cetera, et cetera. But that's fine. We got through what we needed to see, does this work or not? We'll come up with a better solution. The important thing is that everybody really can take part in design. So my initial philosophy holds. I was right. And that's especially important because of what everybody here has been saying, whatever everybody has been saying for the last 3 or 4 nights. Nobody knows anything. We haven't written the rules yet. You need somebody to come in and say, well, what about this thing that I saw in a completely different environment, whether that's interior design, theatrical stage design, film, sculpture, etc. Every time I talk to somebody who doesn't do anything with VR, but does care a lot about one thing or another, education, medicine, industry, they bring up a problem or a solution that I had never, ever thought of. And that's why I love things like Tilt Brush and Big Screen, because you can get people into this space to try stuff that wouldn't necessarily think of doing it. So here's a couple of examples of other tools that you can use to get your hands dirty by waving them around in the air. There's Dry Erase is an app on Steam. It is literally a whiteboard in VR. There's actually this, for a guy like me who wants either art tools or productivity tools, there's a little bubbling up happening on the Steam store of people making little productivity apps like this, mind mapping tools, whiteboarding tools. There's one that's just like Dry Erase. It's a whiteboard, but it's on a beach. That's fine. I'm in shorts half the time when I'm in VR anyway, so I might as well be on a beach. Facebook Spaces is terrific for this kind of stuff if you've got an Oculus, or if you have Revive. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it's a great tool. I actually used it with folks who weren't in VR to meet together with them. First time I used Facebook Spaces with my parents, and they were trying to get to bed, and I woke them up. They're happy to talk to their son. Cisco is working on their own VR tool for Cisco Spark. They're doing a VR version of their online collaboration tool. And finally, my latest crush is Google Blocks, because of my 3D background and because I get tense and stressed out when I'm doing stuff. Google Blocks makes really low polygon models of all sorts of things. And it's a great way to get past the idea that it needs to be perfect and just it needs to be iterated quickly, and it's already a 3D volume. I think Timony West from Unity was talking about using it for some of her design stuff, and she's the smartest there is in this space. And behind that, you've got a little grid art from Tiltbrush, which is what woke me up, right? What saved my life when I first got a VR headset. And I think that's it for my story of how to get non-designers to design stuff. Yeah, that's me. That's my model of the spaceship from Explorers, again, in Google Blocks. You guys got to just get in there and get messy and try stuff. Thanks. Yeah, questions? Anybody? What? All right, mics.
Microphone.
Sounds the wonders of sound. So question, when it comes to storyboarding and trying to show gestures and animation and movement in VR, how do you do that? How do you compare sketches against one another, or animate, or what?
That's harder. And for me, I haven't done much with motion design in VR environments, actually. I do it more in the 2D design work that I've done. And even then, when I moved from being a motion graphic designer to being a UI designer, I actually consciously tried to do as little UI animation as possible because I wanted it to last forever and linger and sparkle and do glowy things. And the engineers would tell me, "What are you doing? You're going to break this thing." Any UI transition shouldn't last longer than like 1/8 of a second anyway. So I've mostly, it's funny, like when I'm doing UI stuff, I become very conservative in terms of motion. But I have not solved that yet, other than the fact that I happen to be a 3D animator and I can give you, here's an animation from this view and this view of what this transition does. I can point you to people that are doing it really well.
Mike Murdoch from Marshmallow Melly, Trihelix VR, their app, the little guy, it's here, he's like, he falls off the grid and he's like, whoa.
Do we need you on camera doing this?
What? Am I going camera? You got me. No, he falls off the grid and then he's like, whoa, and he goes from small to big and then he lands. But there's like all these like visual crazy effects. Did you guys try that? Yeah?
Yeah, if you're looking for places to steal ideas from, I recommend Mindshow and Cosmic Trip from Turbo Button. Those apps are gorgeous in terms of their transitions and animations.
Yeah, and Trihelix VR.
Anybody, any other questions? We're good? I could sing. No, I'm not going to sing.
Yeah, sing for us. Do it. I believe the children are.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh.
I'm saved from singing by another question. Yes.
So do you use any other tools in your design process?
Pencil, pen, first as much as possible. I still haven't found anything that gets a faster connection in my brain than pencil. But then very quickly, Photoshop. I animate in After Effects because I've been doing it for 15 years, so I'm pretty fast in that. Pick something that you're fast in, right? Whatever you're most comfortable with. It doesn't have to be Sketch. It doesn't have to be Sketch. Sketch.
But what about Sketch?
It can be a sketch in a sketchbook. Yeah, that's fine. Designers have grudges.
You're fun. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Daniel. Yes. Awesome. Tons of fun.